Hey there, Twisters. Let's talk about the Washington Capitals. Last night, they did something amazing, something that hadn't been done since February 27th of last year. They shut out the Vegas Golden Knights. They hadn't been shut out in any of their postseason games, and it took their 14th or 15th game of the year to finally get blanked. And it was a 35-save shutout from Charlie Lindgren as the Capitals won what was really a 1-0 game, and then they tacked on a couple of empty netters. But the Caps, at this point, they've won 7 of 9. They're 8-4-2 on the season. They're second place in that Metropolitan Division. Did anybody predict that? I know it's still pretty early, but you gotta credit this team for what they've done, because they're not exactly a powerhouse in very many categories out there. Check this out, guys. They're tied for 31st in goals for per game. Only the Sharks are below them. They're tied for 7th in goals against average, so they are fairly strong at that, but they have the worst power play in the NHL. That's right, with arguably the greatest power play asset of all time, the greatest goal scorer of all time, Alex Ovechkin. He's got uno power play goals this whole year so far. They're only clicking at 7.3%. They're 12th on the penalty kill, so that is pretty good, and they're 30th in faceoff percentage. So not too many great stats that jump out at you, but even so, they're finding a way to get the dubs. But when I look at the game last night against Vegas, I really think the Knights could have won this game. It ultimately came down to who converted their breakaways. The Capitals got a goal from Dylan Strome, and other than that, the Knights were stoned a couple of times on breakaways from Charlie Lindgren. And the Capitals could have actually blown this open somewhat if they were able to get a couple of power play goals with a 5-minute power play. So the Vegas Golden Knights took another major, they killed it off, no power play goals surrendered. And so that Capitals power play, at some point, could that come back to bite them in the butt when they play quality opponents like Vegas? Maybe so. Now, some people would point out the fact that they've actually had a fairly easy schedule so far leading up to this game. I'll throw up the schedule here, but otherwise, yeah, they don't really have many quality wins. Yeah, they've beaten the Devils a couple of times. That is somewhat convincing, but New Jersey, they haven't exactly been the same just yet. I know they have a couple of key injuries, but you got to give credit where it's due. The Caps are actually doing this despite a litany of injuries with players like Martin Ferravari out, Anthony Mantha's out. Of course, they acquired Max Pacioretty in the offseason, but we don't even know if he'll hit the ice this season at all. Joel Edmondson is out. Nicholas Backstrom, it doesn't look like he'll play this season. And in addition to the injuries, I mean, this is a team that has gotten older. They had injuries last year with their forwards. Some of those guys I just talked about. They've lost Orlov on defense. They've lost Garnet Hathaway, who added some sandpaper. So they're doing a very impressive job. And not to mention, they're doing this with a first-year NHL head coach in Spencer Carberry. But for the non-Capitals fans out there, Spencer Carberry was the head coach of their AHL affiliate a couple years ago, the Hershey Bears. And so he has worked with some of the players who have recently been getting some games under their belt with the Capitals. So with some lesser experienced players at the NHL level and with some other players kind of getting long in the tooth, Spencer Carberry has done a good job of getting this team to be competitive on a game in, game out basis. Now, one of those guys has been Connor McMichael, so a young forward who's made an impact on this club already. He's tied for second with Ovechkin for the team lead in goals with 4. And it's very important because you have a lot of players out there who are kind of snake bit, especially somebody like my guy right here, TJ Oshie. He doesn't even have a goal so far this season, just 1 assist in 14 games. But if you look at the other side of the coin, if somebody like Connor McMichael continues to step up and progress, if maybe somebody like Matthew Phillips kind of finds a little bit more consistency in his game, he had a terrible giveaway against the Knights last night. If you have somebody like Oshie converting once in a while, Ovechkin, if he gets back to even being a 30 goal scorer or scoring at that rate, then this team, does it get deadly? Well, possibly so. If you look ahead at their upcoming schedule, they do have some easy opponents. They've got the Blue Jackets, the struggling Sabres, the Oilers, who might be crawling out of a hole, the Sharks, and then you got the Kings and the upstart Anaheim Ducks in a back-to-back, and I think that we'll be live for one of those games here doing play-by-play. And just a side note for Capitals fans or anybody in that area on the East Coast, I might be going to a Capitals game in March or April, so more info on that, but I'd love to possibly do a meetup with some Twisters around there. I'm honestly struggling really pinpointing how the Caps have been successful outside of goaltending, but it hasn't been their number one starter. That's the interesting thing. So Darcy Kemper, he hasn't exactly looked quite like maybe he did with the Avalanche 2 seasons ago, or even last year with the Capitals early in this season. So it's been Charlie Lindgren recently, really turning it on, in addition to a third string goaltender, and that is Hunter Shepard. He's won both of his starts with Washington so far. Also, I do notice that even though there isn't a lot of contributions from the defense offensively, they are starting to get that a little bit more. Rasmus Sandin was somebody who came over at the trade deadline last year. What was kind of a surprising move, but even so, there was a lot of upside to his game. He just wasn't getting that opportunity in Toronto, and he's done a good job of supporting John Carlson, who really is the quarterback from the blue line. Sandin has 4 assists in his last 5 games, so that does make a big difference for this team. But still, there are areas to clean up with the Capitals game. I look at that game last night against the Golden Knights with the breakaways, with some of those high danger chances. Even though structurally, I think in set 5-on-5 defense, they actually look fairly good. I wouldn't say world beaters, but they're still reliable enough for the goaltenders to make the saves they need to make. They are surrendering actually a little bit more in the way of high danger chances than the average NHL team out there, but the goaltenders have been a huge reason as to why those high danger conversion rates are just 7% so far for this season. So with all that being said, are the Capitals for real? I can't say that they are right now, because there isn't anything specifically besides the goaltending that really indicates that this team is going to be very tough to contend with. But hey, a win is a win, and when you win 7 out of 9, and when you're playing in that division, I mean, they're getting it done, and they've got some potential wins lined up ahead in the next couple of weeks. So anyway, what are your thoughts on the Capitals? Let me know in the comments down below. Who else is surprising you in the NHL? Maybe I'll produce a video about them, and stick around for all sorts of coverage of the NHL, all 32 teams and all that good stuff, and more live streams to look forward to. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please do leave a thumbs up. That does help attract other Twisters like you, and see the video description if you want to follow me on social media. I'm Nick, and I'll catch you Twisters later. Ciao for now.